Okay, and welcome to Insight Chat. We've been in hiatus for a little while, and welcome to everyone that is watching this recording, hopefully over the next couple of weeks, if not months. But we've been in hiatus because I was basically building a new studio for what we do and a new office in my shed in the backyard. So that sort of meant that we didn't have any videos posted over the last few months. I'm joined by Lisa Goff, Operations Manager for Quality Insight. Welcome, Lisa.
Thanks, Brad.
Lisa and I had the pleasure of attending the ACCPA National Conference in Adelaide last week, and which the conference on the outset for me was pretty good. It was great to see that there were 2,500 delegates in attendance. Hats off to all the speakers and the organisers. It is a really tough gig putting those things together. But Lisa, for me, I thought it was a pass mark on the national conference. I thought it was well run and well put together and some good speakers.
Yeah, I totally agree. It was actually my first time attending ACCPA in Adelaide, and yeah, I thought it was actually a really good conference. I thought there was some fantastic speakers, as you said, and some really valuable kind of insights that were passed on, I think, throughout the course of the few days.
Yeah, and a couple of big announcements. Obviously, ACCPA has now changed their name to Aging Australia. Tom made that announcement on the second day, I believe. We didn't attend that bit. We were in the hall speaking to one of the 160 odd store holders that were out there. Also think the range of topics they addressed. So obviously staffing was a big one. And there was also a bit of a focus in around the quality, which rightly so. We're in a quality area that's funded by the Australian government quite heavily. But yeah, a lot of talk around what's happening in that sort of HR area. And I don't know, Lisa, if you were surprised, but there was a ton of digital applications within the, I suppose, what is in the providers hall, where we had a lot of providers to aged care showing their wares.
Yeah, look, I probably didn't expect to see as much in the HR space as we did. It wasn't something that I really considered going into it. Certainly understand the need for it, and workforce is one of the biggest challenges that providers are facing, I know. So certainly it makes sense. But yeah, I probably didn't expect to see quite as much around that HR, particularly in the international opportunities for recruitment and things like that. So yeah, that was probably a surprise for me. And one of my key takeaways was the real focus in that respect, as well as the need for additional homes to be built and resources for, being able to facilitate a lot more people coming into care. So I think there was very similar themes across the 3 days and across a lot of the talks and seminars that we sat through. And I think one of those themes, as you said, was certainly the discussions around HR and workforce planning.
Yeah, and look, it has coincided with the lift in care minutes that all aged care providers are required to lift up now. But yeah, I think there was a real fear across some that as these care minutes increase, staffing levels are not adequate across the country, and immigration, HR or recruitment areas are going to be becoming really important. Probably what was more interesting to me was what was not discussed. And there was plenty of water cooler talk in and around a couple of key areas that are potentially coming down through the Aged Care Act. First of all, let's point out that Lisa and I sat through Annika Wells' speech. She made it quite clear that that if the Act wasn't passed through Parliament this year, there was a real chance that it was going to be stuck in limbo. So I think there was a bit of a fear factor put through there, Lisa. Am I over-amplifying it, or?
No, totally agree. I think that was certainly the concept and certainly received in that manner from my perspective as well. I think there was a few political conversations that were had, and certainly some delivered better than others. But I think the theme, again, was quite consistent with, if it's not done this year and if we don't make steps forwards this year, there is going to be a significant delay. We're all going to be in limbo, and who knows where it's going from there.
Yeah, and I think there was a real call on the putting pressure on the bipartisan piece. So the Liberal government, or Liberal Party, not the government, sorry, Liberal Party would be potentially a blocker of this. We heard Ian Runston talk about that there were parts or elements of it that she wasn't satisfied, and she felt that she had to act like a voice for aged care industry that had gone to her with some recommendations. But I guess at the end of the day, if we look at the industry, if they don't pass this through prior to Christmas, whether the election is called for March or May, there's going to be some real fear across the industry about what's next and what this holdup could be. We've got up there as a placeholder additional services. Now, that was spoken to me personally by quite a number of providers. Lisa, I'm sure you had a couple of discussions with people about additional services.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, but I think the real notion there is the current program of additional services as they stand in the industry has got to change. Where it changes to and what it looks like in the future is really up in the air, and I think that's going to be quite concerning to all providers out there that provide this product. But for me, anyone that's providing a bundle or a service product that is very similar to lifestyle, very similar to what should be provided under basic daily fee structures, I think they could kiss it goodbye. I think that those programs are done.
Yeah, and rightly so. I definitely agree with you there, but I think an interesting point that it wasn't actually discussed in detail. There was no real discussions around what it could look like, what it could mean, or what could happen as a result of this act coming through. So yeah, that was probably a little bit of a letdown in my respect, especially given the conversations that we were having with people there around additional services. But yeah, certainly the need to tighten up on things and to make sure that those services that are being delivered or are being charged are giving that derived benefit, which is what they should be anyway. But certainly it sounds to me like it's in for a world of change for a lot of people that aren't complying with that currently.
Yeah, and look, I absolutely would have been the first one lining up at the door if they had a session on, look, we get, here's the disclaimer, we get there's nothing concrete in the Act right now, but here's how additional services is currently working. Are you doing these things, which were highlighted in mid-2023 in terms of access and derived benefit? We could have a really good session around discussing that from a panel, looking into what you should be doing right now in preparation, potentially in the future. As an industry, we've still got additional services for a period of time. So, yeah, I think there would have been real benefit to hearing feedback and what people are doing around that. And look, full disclosure, we have a product that promotes additional services. We just believe that what we're putting forward is a real additional service. It's not a lifestyle program in sheep's clothing. It's actually something that derives benefit to the resident and the family members that are engaged within.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the reason why we do that is because of the need for it out there. I think what previously has been going through as an additional services program, from my perspective anyway, really didn't meet the needs of those people that are in care, and the needs to make sure that there is an absolute derived benefit if we're charging someone. So yeah, I think additional services play a really hugely important role in providing a quality care to residents. But I think it's certainly, looking around at some of the programs around the industry, there are some that leave a lot to be desired.
Well, and the litmus test really is look at our mystery shops where you've got consultants that are unable to explain their additional service programs. They're unsure how it works, or they'll just give it away straight up that you don't have to pay for it. So I think that's, if you're a provider out there, you've got additional service program and your sales staff can't explain what it is, or giving it away really quickly, you've got a problem straight up. I think you need to address that. Sorry, any more to add on that one, Lisa?
No, I think you covered it off, Brad.
Yeah, great. Look, the other bit that I was really interested in too, and again, full disclaimer on this, there's nothing set in stone, but I would have liked to have seen a discussion around the proposed RAD changes that are coming through. There's talk of a 2% per year retention. There's talking about it going from $550 to $750 for pre-approved RAD pricing. That seems to be more set in stone than anything else. But again, just a bit of a fishbowl discussion around what providers are thinking, what they could do, how they could strategically start aligning these sort of things moving forward.
Yeah, I think Look, 3 days is not a lot of time, absolutely. And I think there was a lot of content that was covered throughout the course of those 3 days. Probably one of the things that you've mentioned there, Brad, around that discussion, I think that would have been a really good kind of robust discussion to hear and to receive feedback on. But also, from my perspective, there was quite a bit of doubling up with some of the other content. I think we both mentioned it on the way back, but there were a few things where we'd seen the same slide or the same content on some of the slides over 3 or 4 different presentations. So certainly I think that sort of a conversation around proposed RAD changes, what that means for the industry, what that means for providers, may have been a really welcome addition, just to really get that conversation started and to get the important things that people are wanting to know about out in the open.
Yeah, and really nice segue, Lisa, into the M&A discussions that we saw take place. So we sat through 3 presentations with a focus on mergers and acquisitions, and I agree we saw the same slide 3 times, possibly even more slides. All they had is a font change and a colour change. Look, on the topics themselves, they're very relevant. We're seeing the bigger end of town starting to buy out the smaller guys, even not so smaller guys. But there seems to be a real energy in the market right now for the bigger players to consume the smaller homes and to grow their base. And they should do. Like, I agree, like the more homes that they have under their banner, the stronger their position. They wouldn't incur really any other head office costs in acquiring these homes. But for the smaller provider out there is a market right now where you probably get top dollar for your care home as opposed to 2 or 3 years ago. But yeah, Lisa, those presentations, they felt like they were very repetitive.
Yeah, I think, look, the content and the story was the story that needed to be told. I think there was some clear messaging in and around the fact that, you know, the demographic and what's happening across aged care at the moment is we're starting to see this massive influx, and we're not going to be able to keep up with it in the current format. So mergers and acquisitions become key in, you know, leveraging off strategies to try and maximize the number of beds that are out there, and also the way that we think about how to sell those beds. I think as far as mergers and acquisitions goes, there was a lot of talk about the top 3 and, you know, the size of those providers and how they're growing. Like you said, the attractiveness, I guess, for the smaller homes that are out there, the 1 and 2 home providers, and, you know, the potential that they can be snapped up and really become quite an opportunity in the market. But I think overall the thought around the fact that there's not a lot of development happening at the moment and there is a significant need for it calls out the need for different ways of thinking.
Yeah. Well, and case in point, we sat through everyone's presentation. I think they spent the first half of it telling everyone what the problem was, like especially in the M&A space, the number of people expected to go into resi aged care versus the homes built. We all understand that problem.
Yeah.
We all understand there's nothing built. I would have rather seen that time started talking about what are some potential strategies or solutions, or even some sparks of discussion points where people could openly start talking about what they were thinking and how things could lead. I think that's where you see an industry going well, where you could have those quite robust discussions but they bear fruit at the end of it. People go away from it thinking, right, I've heard something a little bit different. It could be a different strategy I could undertake. It could be a different viewpoint. The M&A bit probably dovetails a little bit into our previous discussion around proposed RADs. I would have loved in the middle of that a discussion around, well, hang on, with mergers and acquisitions, there's a lot about how potential RAD lift could come into this. So these are the areas that you could come up with. I think the last speaker that was on the day from Ansell actually did a pretty good job, a really good job in summarising what the position was, but reiterated a number of times, whatever we do now is not going to bear fruit for 18 to 24 months. Why should we wait another 9 months for this bill to be passed and ratified and underway on July 1st? We should start having those discussions now, because we know we got 18 months before it bears fruit.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was the alarming thing. And I think seeing it repeated across multiple presentations was really ramming it home. But I guess the thing from my perspective, and you've just touched on it there as well, is there was no real this is the way out of it, this is what we're thinking. It was more highlighting the issue, but not necessarily having the opportunity to then go through the, logical progression that needs to occur. So yeah, I think there's definitely room for some discussions and thinking to happen outside of that, and it really does need to happen quickly. And I think I mentioned a minute ago, but we need to change the way that we're thinking about things as well, because what we're doing currently is not going to satisfy what the need is very, very soon.
Well, that takes us to the next discussion we saw was the bed blocking fishbowl discussion. Now I know some followers of Quality Insight have said to me before they don't like the term bed blocking. Not our term. This was actually the name of the section in the conference. Look, we listened to some really good forward thinking areas. So we heard of the community service group in Illawong district. We also heard from the guys in Tasmania, Peter Williams talking about what he'd done with the Tasmanian Health Network. It's really interesting. And look, Lisa, you and I, we've been banging our head against a brick wall with Paul, with South Australia Health, New South Wales Health, Queensland Health, around this problem for a number of years. But there doesn't seem to be any accountability ownership across the country from state or federal governments to want to solve the issue around not the bed blocking bit, but how do they transition through into aged care. Lots of talk about communication, lots of talk about mistrust of information. No processes. We've been using the same process since Moses was a boy with a lot of this sort of things. I sort of felt that everyone is failing in this area.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. I think it was an interesting discussion to watch happen at ACCPA around, what they've done as this trial that they've put through, a pilot to the program that they'd started to look into as their review for bed blocking in Tasmania and regional New South Wales. I think there's a lot of things to consider when it comes through this end-to-end process, from, occupancy being quite high in specific areas across the country. People have got waiting lists now that there's minimal vacancies. People have got clinical teams that are reviewing, information that's coming through from hospital networks and health networks. And where there are complex cases, whether it be behavioural or care needs, it sounded like there is a real reluctance to take on these difficult cases when you may have some easy ones sitting in the wings ready to go through. So I think the problem, and probably the thing that it highlighted to me, is that the problem is not confined to one state. It's the exact same problem everywhere. So there needs to be a solution that encompasses every avenue of what's going on. I think, that discussion was good in that it highlighted that the problems were there. It highlighted significant areas being, like you said, trust and transparency on both sides, the need for additional beds, the need for funding. So I think, there's an absolute critical point of conversation that needs to happen. It needs to be something that everyone is addressing together as a collaborative group. And I think as an industry, we really need to put our hand up and say, what can we do from our end to fix this problem, so that we can start to put things in place to fix what's going on and to try and help these people get out of hospital.
Yeah. And look, the discussions I had with a couple of different CEOs and COOs across those 3 days was really highlighting the need for really clear, concise information. And interesting enough, another self-plug for us with our CareBridge portal, we're starting to talk to Queensland Health and getting some traction around what that could look like. So we're putting forward that we do a symposium based here in Brisbane with basically heads of CEOs, COOs of aged care for homes coming together with some Queensland Health people and really nut out what's the information do we need for assessment, what's the home truths on the table, and to make sure that we got some clarity moving forward. I will just also note, I said Illawong, it's Illawarra, so I can't wait for the pronunciation police to come after me on that one, but we'll look forward to that. Look, we've only got a couple more minutes though, Lisa, but I thought overall great conference. Would certainly go back again. I'd encourage anyone that was thinking of going to an ACCPA conference in this industry to certainly do it. You will learn more, you will take away more, you'll connect with more people, than ever before. And I think this industry is really screaming for it. So well done, Tom and the team at ACCPA.
Yeah, I totally agree, Brad. I think first, as I said, it was the first time I'd attended the ACCPA conference. I think it was fantastic in the way that it was set up, delivered. Messaging was great throughout it. And to be honest, just the ability to meet people face to face that you've been dealing with across the industry was one of the biggest highlights for me. I see a lot of people this way along the end of a video call, and having the ability to catch up face to face and to have those personal discussions around what we're seeing in the industry was, yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah, excellent. And really, what's next for us? Look, Inside Chat is going to continue. As I said, we'll hopefully be pumping out some really relevant content. We've also got the ability with the Quality Insight Studio One to do our online training. So we've got an online sales training program coming up on the 20th of November. It will start at 9 a.m. For anyone interested in getting in contact or wanting more information, please email us at sales@qualityinsight.com, and you'll either have Lisa or myself come back to you with details around that. Look, it proves to be a really interactive program. We don't believe in killing people by PowerPoint. It's something that hopefully you'll learn and pick up a couple of new skills, but information on the industry itself. And anyone that wants to jump on board and be involved in the discussion, you're more than welcome. The way we want to run Inside Chat, it's not an interview process. We want to have a topic and really debate it and talk through on it. And I think this industry is starting to really need those sort of things, so we can get some clarity around different things. Lisa, great to have you on Inside Chat. Thank you for spending your afternoon with us. Anyone else listening, thank you. And anything final, Lisa, do you want to talk about?
Probably the only other thing that I haven't mentioned yet, and one of my biggest takeaways from the conference, which I think is relevant across the industry again, is the reputation in aged care was raised by a question on one of the first days at the open plenary session. And I think that's a real focal point and something that needs to be brought up as a conversation starter, and probably something that we'll probe further into down the track. So I think everyone talks about aged care and there's mixed feelings about it across the board. I think Tom said it really well when he said it's up to us as people that work in this industry to really push the positive narrative around what we're doing in aged care and the significant changes that we've seen in the industry over the last few years. I think we've all experienced the same sort of conversations, so I think that's a really important one to finish up on for me.
Absolutely, and a great finishing note. So thank you once again. And thank you anyone that's taken the time to listen to the whole video. And hopefully you'll tune in for the next one. Take care and goodbye.